You join me today on what I think is one of the UK's, if not the UK's best driving road. It starts down there in the little town, the market town of Moffat in southern Scotland, and it spears its way up through the Moffat Hills on its way northeast towards Edinburgh. It's got everything. It's an enthusiast delight. It's got hairpins, it's got wide open straights, it's got fast flowing bends, it's got huge elevation changes and off camber crests. If you look on a map, it's rather unceremoniously known as the A701. To those of us who know it well and grew up around here, it's more commonly referred to as the Devil's Beeftub. And it's called that because of what's down in there. You see, back in the 1300s, some local scallywags known as the Reivers, which were the families of the Moffats, the Johnstons and some of their friends, used to nip across the border into England and steal some of their, well, as we say in Scotland, their coos. And that is where they used to hide them before selling them on, hence the name the Beeftub. But why am I telling you all this? Why am I up here at the side of a Scottish mountain road telling you all this history? Well, it's because of what's over there, which is this, the Polestar 2 BST270. Now, whilst many people will tell you that EVs can be fast, especially in a straight line, the naysayers will tell you they're not designed for enthusiasts. They're not there for the petrol heads in us that want to feel the thrill of the open road that can connect with the road, such as the Beeftub. Well, thankfully, those crazy Swedes tend to disagree with them. Welcome to this week's road test review. Welcome to the Polestar 2 BST270. And as always, welcome to AutoEV. Now, before we go into this week's road test review of the new Polestar 2 BST270, it is of course that time where I'm going to ask you to make sure that you are subscribed to the AutoEV channel. Then once you've done that, press the little bell button down below, because then you get notified when the next video goes live. After you've watched it, if you've enjoyed it, make sure you give it a thumbs up. And don't forget, please leave us your comments down below. Let us know what your thoughts are on the cars that we review, such as the new Polestar 2 BST270, and of course on the AutoEV channel as a whole. Now, a little caveat, I am on a main road here, so you are going to see cars coming past, and I had to wait on some of the weather clearing because it's been quite misty up here, so some shots you'll see a lot of mist, other shots you'll see nice blue skies, but hey, welcome to Scotland. What is this and why have I got it here? Well, it came about by the fact that Polestar CEO Thomas Englandlath, I think his name is, sort of like tasking his engineers to come up with a car, a Polestar 2, for enthusiast drivers, for himself to use as an enthusiastic driver, as a true petrol head. But it couldn't lack any of the sort of usability and the everyday sort of like practicality of the standard Polestar 2. And that's exactly what they created. Now, the car was originally a concept that he now uses is called the Beast. Bit of a silly name if you ask me, but it made its debut at the 2021 Goodwood Festival of Speed. It sat a bit lower, it had different sort of track, it had different trick suspension in it, and it caught people's imagination. It really sort of like got people thinking, could an EV be a proper sports saloon? Now, as I say, it's quite easy to make an EV fast. You just turn it up to 11 and hope for the best. But that's not what this car is about, and we'll go on to this in the road test. But what they decided to do was to put that car, the Beast, into sort of like a limited production form. And this is what we have here. And of course, it's called the BST270. BST, well, it's an abbreviation of the word Beast, and 270, because that's how many they're making for a global market. There's only 40 coming to the UK, and they're all sold out. So why are we bothering with this review? Well, I'd stick with it if I was you, because this might be a bit of an eye-opener for you. But before I get started, let me just give you a little bit of a snapshot of what the Polestar 2 BST270 is all about. Well, as I say, the BST270 is a car that Polestar says is designed to appeal to the enthusiast. It's based on the dual motor car, and power increases from just over 400 brake horsepower to 469 brake horsepower. As I say, it's limited to build in just 270 units, 40 of which were allocated to the UK. It has a WLTP range of up to 268 miles, and the price for the BST270 was £69,000, almost £21,000 more than the dual motor car that it's based on. But if Polestar are only making 270 of them, 40 of them for the UK, and they're all sold, what's the point? Well, some journalists got to experience this car on the Ascari circuit down in southern Spain. Now that's all very well and good, and I'm sure it performed exceptionally well on a circuit. But not all of us drive on a circuit. In fact, most of us drive on roads like this. So I wanted to know was, does the BST270 stand up to being a true driver's car on what is my favourite road in the UK? Well, there was only one way to try it, wasn't there? To put it through the AutoEV road test on the Beeftub. Okay, so what have they changed styling-wise when it comes to the BST270? Well, not a huge amount, and that's kind of a good thing, because we've always thought that the Polestar 2 is, well, probably the best looking car in its class. Even with the introduction of the Hyundai Ioniq 6, I still think this one, in terms of how it looks, is just an absolute winner for me. It's just clean, it's just that nice crisp kind of Scandi design that we've always loved about the Polestar 2. But there are a few subtle changes. Now, obviously, the most obvious one is this rather incongruous, thankfully optional stripe that goes up over the car with a big 2 in the middle of it. Have to say, I'd be leaving that off if it was me. Now, you can only get the Polestar 2 BST270 in 3 colours, which is either the snow white, the thunder grey, or a thunder grey with a matte grey wrap on it. There's also this nice little Polestar engineered badge, which takes up one of the little squares on this kind of blocked grille, which is quite nice. And the eagle-eyed amongst you will also notice as well that it's also colour-coded, so there's none of the black trim round the car that you get on the standard Polestar 2. But, as I say, apart from that rather questionable stripe, they've left well alone. Now, it's when you get round the side of the Polestar 2, you start to notice some more little subtle clues as to its potency. Starting with these, the bespoke 21-inch forged alloy wheels. Now they're forged, not cast, because then that helps reduce the unsprung mass at each corner. And we'll go on to talk about the engineering in the performance and handling section, because that's why I've brought this car here. Anyway, the design of these is modelled on the Polestar 1. They're obviously big, hyper, super GT coupe that they started the company with. And because the car is fitted with the performance pack as well, you get the gold calipers and the dust caps as well. Some rather trick brakes as well, but we'll talk about them later on as well. Again, you'll notice there's no black cladding on the car, it's all kind of colour coded. Apart from, you get the gloss black door mirror housings as well. And then going down the side of the car, there's the only badge on it, is that apart from the little Polestar engineered badge at the front, is the little subtle sticker down the side that tells you you've got something a bit special by the BST edition 270. But other than that, you are looking at a standard Polestar 2. Or are you? Because again, part of it turning the Polestar 2 into the BST270 means it has a 25mm drop in ride height. And that goes along with bespoke tyres. Now these are Pirelli P0s, and as I say, obviously they're 21-inch. They're slightly wider at the back as well, and they're wider at the back for 2 reasons. First of all, it gives the tyre a bit more of a lateral grip. So in other words, it doesn't roll off the rim as much in the corners as well, and it just improves stability and grip at the rear end of the car too. And talking of the rear, well, that's unchanged as well, thankfully. As I say, apart from the silly stripe, obviously you get Polestar badge there, and that's it. No other badging on the back, which I think is a good thing. And I think the subtle tweaks they've done in terms of the styling are just enough, and I'll explain that why. There's too much focus sometimes on a sporty car looking too sporty, and as I say, if you take that stripe off, you'd never know what this was, and in my opinion that makes this a brilliant Q car. Now Q cars used to be sort of, you know, the high performance versions of the cars, but they were all underneath the skin. You'd never know from the outside what it was that was actually storming past you on the motorway or the autobahn, or like here on a nice open Scottish twisty mountain road. And that's what I love about this car. It reminds me of the very, very first M5s, the E28 and the E39 M5. You really didn't know what it was unless you were really looking at it. And the other car that it reminds me a little bit of is the Lancia Thema 8.32. Now the Thema was the Lancia that was developed alongside Saab 9000, Fiat Chrome, and the Alfa Romeo 164 in the Type 4 project way back in the 80s. And Lancia took a Ferrari engine, a V8 engine from at the time, the 308, and slotted it at the front of a Thema. But you'd never know that's what it was. The only way you could tell was it had the 5-spoke alloys, and like the Polestar, you had a tiny little badge just in the front grille, which was ever so slightly different as well, and it had a little pop-up boot spoiler, which again you'd only notice at speed. And that to me is one of the ultimate Q cars out there. But what do you think? Enough? I mean, forget the stripe, as I say, that wouldn't be on my personal choice, but have they done enough? Would you prefer to see them do more with the styling of the car? Let me know in the comments down below. Now, if we're doing a road test, we really need to talk about mundane stuff, don't I, really? Well, it's the same boot as you get in a standard Polestar 2, which means 405 litres with a 60-40 split rear seat. Okay, you get this nice kind of boot divider, which is quite kind of handy for, you know, hanging your shopping bags off there. And there's a little bit of underfloor storage in there. But yeah, there's nothing really different back there. But there is something different up at the front. Because up here, I lose all interest in practicality. Yep, there's a front mounted boot so you can store your cables in. But, oh! Adjustable Öhlins dampers with a hose mounted gas reservoir for individual adjustment of compression. And then underneath here you can just see the tops of it, the aluminium strut brace at the front for increased rigidity. Oh, matron. Now, much like the back, up here is pretty much standard Polestar 2. So again, you might wonder why we're bothering even telling you about it. Well, interestingly, you know, I've driven Polestar 2 a lot since its launch, and I've done, you know, some reasonable journeys in them. This is probably the biggest journey that I've done up and back to Scotland. And it's when you live with a car like this, when you really spend a lot of time in it, you start to notice little things. And there are a couple of little annoyances with the vehicle, which I will go on to. But let's start with the fundamentals, a quick recap. Right, driving position, well, it's excellent, you know. However, I'm going to add a little caveat into this. I find it excellent, and I'm quite short, as you know, I'm 5'7", 5'8". Taller people have told me before with their previous reviews they don't like this console because they bang their knees against it. I don't, because I'm so short. So it's great for me, and I quite like the fact you're kind of cocooned in this individual kind of driver's seat. And again, for a performance orientated car like this one, I like that. However, I will concede that's not going to be perfect for everyone. So if you're taller and you're looking at a Polestar 2, go for a good drive, because that might just annoy you a little bit. Okay. The binnacle, fabulous, love it. Clear, concise, you've got your speed on the left, battery, your range and your state of charge on the right. Simple as that, and then all the little ancillaries kind of around it that you need. And you can change the screen as well, which I had yesterday, because when I was coming up, I had it set so that the navigation was here. I had my media on here, the navigation there, even though I know where I'm going. And then it reduces the sort of like the speedo down into the bottom left corner and the range into the bottom right. But they're not interrupted by the steering wheel that you get in some cars like Hyundai's and some of the Mercedes. So even though they're smaller, the right's there in front of you. And it also means you don't need a head-up display. You've got everything right there just in front of you, this nice kind of straight ahead of you. So I really like that. Steering wheel, nice standard Polestar 2, vegan leather. So there's no leather on the inside of the car. Vegan leather. 3-spoke design, nice clicky buttons which are just fall to hand really easily. The centre boss isn't the most attractive, but I'll forgive it because the rest of the wheel is nice to hold as it is. I prefer it over the BMW i4 and the Tesla. They've got that slightly thicker steering wheel, but you know, as I say, that maybe needs a bit of a redesign. Right, moving on to this. So you've got your 11-inch portrait infotainment screen now, which has had a little bit of an upgrade because you now get Apple CarPlay as well. However, first of my bugbears, it's wired, and where the USB port is there, it looks a little bit untidy, and the wireless charging pad's next to it. So you plug your phone in and drop it onto that wireless charging pad, and after a while your phone says it's getting too hot. So that could have been a slightly better thought out solution in my opinion, and it could also have been wireless. Which would have been nice, but there we go, it's not. But the screen itself is simplicity to use. You know, it's like a big iPad or, you know, other tablets that you can use, and everything's nice and easy. Google Maps, quick to use. It operates off the Google Assistant as well, so the voice recognition is superb. you know, just asking it to find you places and it navigates you straight to there. You know, or if you're using CarPlay, you use Siri to obviously adjust your Spotify if you want as well. Or you've also got, you know, Bluetooth media player if you're not using the CarPlay as well. So that's good. You can go into your settings, nice and simple there, change the display. Everything's really clear and easy to use. Everything's nice and kind of, it just seems like the right size. And as silly as this sounds, my colleagues Rod and Charlie, who are both kind of creative designers, what they've always said about the Volvos and the Polestar is the font that they use is the best out there, because it's really easy to read at a glance. You know, it's nice and simple to see. There's nothing fancy about it. It's just clear and concise and looks good. And I have to agree with them. It's simplicity. You can go into car settings there. And again, adjusting stuff in the car is so simple. There's no these great big kind of sub-menus to choose little nuances of things. You know, steering feel, do you want light, standard or firm? Do you want your sport mode, your ESC sport mode on or off? Do you want your one pedal driving to be off, low or standard? And do you want creep on or off? That's it. There's no driving modes with it. What you get is what you see. There's no paddle for the brake regen. You just click it in here, decide the one you want. You know, it's just a click away. I really like that. Your climate control system is on the screen as well. You know, for heated seats, heated steering wheel, you can click on that, or for adjusting the temperature. That's down there. You can bring up a more kind of, what do you call it, a more kind of detailed menu if you want to adjust certain things. But you've also got the heated rear screen button and full defrost as a physical button on here. So that's good. The other physical button you get is the volume control and the play and pause for your track or your radio. So I like that too. Again, the same with car settings. Where was it there? Yeah, so your driver assistance modules. So they're all in there. You just press that. Do you want them on or off? Simple. Charging status. You know, do you want to set the charge limit? Do you want to schedule it? Just simple to use. And again, going into really kind of little things like, do you want the mirrors to fold down when you lock and all that kind of stuff. It's just a click away. It's one of the best infotainment screens, I think, just for the fact that it is so simple. You can jump in this and get to use it really quickly. As much as I like the Tesla Model 3 screen, it's not as simple as that. And I think, dare I suggest, when you're of a certain age, being simple like that is really good. That's what I like about it. Anyway, that's all good. So that stuff's good. Quality, superb. Typical Polestar. Everything feels like it's going to last. And it's solid. The materials that they use is really, really nice. But this is what I'm going to just come on to. This is one of my first little bugbears of it. It's a standard Polestar 2 interior. I'd quite like them to have done something just a little bit more special for the BST edition. A little badge somewhere, or a different type of material you can't get on the other cars. And whilst the seats are superb, I mean, I know it was a 6.5 hour drive for me yesterday in the car, and I got out feeling as fresh as a daisy. Again, you're on this kind of twisty road, feeling the benefits of the engineering underneath the car. I'd quite like them to have maybe done a different style of seat, you know, with maybe a one-piece backrest, or even the seats at the Polestar 1 where they've got slightly more kind of wraparound on the shoulders, or Alcantara finish, but just something that lifts it from the standard Polestar 2 interior would have been really nice, and I think they've missed a wee bit of a trick there. You do get the Pilot Pack, and oh god, I've forgotten what it is now. You get something else as standard, so you get things like the panoramic glass sunroof is standard, the Harman Kardon sound system, which is exceptional. The other bugbear I've got about this silly stripe, it cuts across the screen. That should be cut, I think, or just don't choose the stripe. But why that cuts across the top of the sunroof, I think that's a really daft idea. Anyway, that's me. The other thing that bugs me a little bit, and if any of the guys from Polestar are watching this, you are quite at liberty to take me outside next time you see me and give me a damn good saying to for saying this, but I'm going to say it. I lived in this car yesterday for 6.5 hours. There's only one cup holder. Well, sort of. There's a second one, but you've got to have the armrest open for it. Now, I always travel with a coffee flask and a water bottle. I'd like 2 cup holders, and they're in a really bad place. And if you're using that one, then you can't have the armrest folded. You know, and on a 6.5 hour drive yesterday, I'd quite like to have had the armrest folded so I could sit. But you can't. You've got to use it for your water bottle. So that's silly. Think that. Storage is okay. Door bins, they're nice, they're rubber lined. You know, things don't rattle about in them. You know, they've got a nice bit of carpet and then the rubber on the bottom, which is good. I see you've got a bit there. You've got these little pockets down the side of the centre console, which is just enough for my sunglasses case, which I like. And then you've just got kind of standard kind of glove box. So, on the whole, what do we think? Well, as I say, it's Polestar 2, so I really like it. I think the Ioniq 6 from Hyundai has slightly lifted it in terms of interiors for me. I like their use of the kind of recycled and the sustainability message that Hyundai have come along, and there's a lot of different materials being used in that. There's still a massive sustainability message from Polestar, don't get me wrong, but I just think they've used different materials and you can really see it and you go, oh, that's really quirky, that's different. And it's a bit more usable. The storage space is a bit better and I like the kind of screens. But on saying that, I'm in no way disappointed with the functionality of this interior. I think it's better than the BMW i4, I think it's better than the Tesla Model 3, and I do like the Model 3 Tesla's interior, I do, in terms of its screen and stuff, but I think this is slightly better. So yeah, on the whole, I've got to say, there's nothing to complain about in here. I just wish they'd done something a little bit more special just for the BST270 edition, that's all. Oh, and sort the cup holders out. Now, it uses the same 78 kilowatt hour battery that you get in the standard long range Polestar 2, but the range drops. The WLTP range drops to around about 287 miles or something, but in reality it's 240 to 250 miles, and that's what I've been seeing in my time with the car. Charging speeds, well, they're pegged at 150 kilowatts, but that does mean from a charge that's capable of delivering that, you can go from your benchmark 10 to 80% in around about 35 minutes. And if you're charging up from your 7 kilowatt home wall box, then you're going from flat to full in 12.5 hours. Now, what would you say is competition for this car? Well, there is some out there, and in fairness, I did wonder about maybe doing a twin test with this and BMW's i4 M50, because that, like the BST, is their their engineering department, the M department, taking the i4 and, you know, sort of like making it a bit more of a driver's car and putting that, sprinkling that little bit of M magic over it. So that was a consideration. Of course, you could consider that car as well as one of these. It's a bit more powerful, but I don't think it's the sweet spot in the i4 range, and if you're a regular viewer will know, we think actually lower down the i4 range, the eDrive 40 is probably the one to have in that. Hyundai, I mentioned them when I was talking about the interior, so the Ioniq 6, they're going to be doing an N version of that at some point as well. So again, given their motorsport pedigree, especially rallying, that could be a car that could be well worth considering. You could argue as well you've got the Tesla Model 3 Performance, but in fairness, it's not quite the sort of, it's just fast. That's what the Tesla does. It's a very annoying Scottish bee around me. It's just fast. It doesn't have the sort of the chassis dynamics and the honing that this car has, and it's not quite as special, dare I suggest. But there are others too at this sort of price point. I mean, Kia's EV6 GT, that has to maybe be a consideration as well, because again, Kia want to be seen as a kind of sportier brand, and certainly whilst it's much more powerful than the Polestar 2, it's also got quite a finely kind of honed chassis, and you know how much we love the EV6 in standard guys anyway. But at this price point, you are also looking at cars such as the Porsche Taycan in its standard rear-wheel drive form. And now I think the rear-wheel drive Taycan is a great, great car, and possibly the pick of the Taycan range. And of course, there's the Audi e-tron GT in non-RS guys, which again is it's a little bit more expensive, but I suppose there's an argument saying if you're at this price point anyway, moving that little bit further into getting something, you know, like those kind of like GT style of cars, you could consider. But otherwise, it is a bit tricky when it comes to sort of like full electric, sort of like sports offerings at this price point. Now, the price of the Polestar 2 BST270 edition was £69,000. And I say was, and there's a very simple reason for that. You see, the 270 in the name indicates how many units Polestar were building. 270 of them, 40 of which were allocated to the UK. And they've all sold. Now, at this point, you might be wondering then, what is the point of me watching a road test review, Brian, on a car that I can't buy? Well, there's two reasons for that. The first reason is, if you did miss out on a BST270, they're about to launch a BST230 on the new 24 model year car. Wonder how many of those they're going to build. But the second reason is the reason why I'm here. And that's all going to come clear in the performance and handling section we're going to do now. All right, now to the nitty gritty and how the Polestar 2 BST270 drives. Well, first of all, I've set the car up exactly how I want it. So I've got the steering feel to be firm. I've got the brake regen in sort of like standard form. So there's just enough as I'm coming up to a bend, if I just lift off, it scrubs off enough speed for me. And I've got the ESC system set into sport, so it just allows a tiny little bit of slip if I need it. However, I don't think I'll need that today, because as you can see, the sun's out and there is so much grip from these tyres, it's quite incredible. Now, let's go through the changes to what they've done to make this car. So it's 469 brake horsepower, which isn't, you know, making it the fastest in the realms of things like the BMW i4 M50 and the Tesla Model 3 Performance, but that isn't what this car's about. It'll still do 0 to 62 in just over 4 seconds, so it's no slouch, but it's out here. It's all the other little changes they've made where the car really starts to come alive, and it's all underneath. It's in the chassis department. Now, normally at this section I'll tell you about what it's like to drive and the comfort and stuff. Don't care about any of that at the moment. I'm concentrating purely on what it's like as a driver's car. So, what have they done? Well, ride height's down 25mm, so you sit a little bit sort of like closer to the ground. As I say, you've got those adjustable Öhlins dampers at the front, which you can adjust the compression ratio on, which is just superb. You've got these bespoke 21-inch alloy wheels, which are forged, not cast, which makes them lighter. They've lightened the brakes, so the unsprung mass at each corner is lighter, meaning that the car isn't having to deal with a lot of weight as the standard one is. I have never driven an EV that disguises its weight as well as this car. This is incredible, and it's still a heavy car. It's still 2 tons, but even so, you wouldn't know it. Now, the steering is absolutely sublime. It is just so communicative. I can feel exactly what's going on with the front tyres. Talking of tyres, Polestar went to Pirelli and asked them to make some bespoke rubber for this car, and they have. Now, they're slightly wider at the back, so that means there's a degree of flexibility in them, and it means that they don't tend to roll onto the rim. It gives much more grip at the back end of the car. And it gives confidence, and this is the whole thing with this car. The confidence that you have on a road like this, where if it goes wrong, you're down there and having a very awkward conversation to the people at Polestar on your mobile. And I don't want that. The brakes are superb. These brakes have more feel than Prince Andrew on a prom night. They are sensational. They scrub off speed so well, and the pedals got just a beautiful feel to it. Look at hooking that into that corner. That's simply brilliant. This car is sensational. Let me tell you now that despite being quicker in a straight line, I don't think an i4 M50 or a Model 3 Performance Tesla would see which way this car went on a road like this. And the reason for that is what's happening underneath me. All that chassis work, all of those little changes, the adjustability of the dampers, the better tyres, the unsprung mass being lightened off, it's allowing the chassis to deal with all the road imperfections. It's telling me what's going on, but it's not making me work hard. It's making me concentrate on the things I need to concentrate on, as in where I'm going, where I'm putting the car, where I'm placing it on the road, and how I'm turning the wheel. And I don't need to worry about it being knocked offline. The way these dampers are dealing with some of the marks in this road is simply staggering. This is an absolute, unbelievably good car. Oh my God, this is simply staggering. Now, why do you need adjustability on dampers? Well, simply put is this. too stiff like they are in, say, the Tesla, and as soon as you hit a pothole, then the transmission of the shock is all the way through in the car structure. The dampers aren't dealing with it. Also as well, if they're too stiff, when you hit an undulation, the dampers don't go all the way to the travel, and so therefore when they stop short, you lose contact with the road, so therefore you're actually losing grip. That's why adjustability in dampers is so important. You make them too soft, and obviously the car just rolls around and you've got no control over it. Not this. I can't get over what they've done here. What a car, what a road, and what a car to enjoy on this road. This is simply the most dynamic EV I have driven on a road. It's an absolute sensation, this car. It really is. I haven't even broken a sweat. You may be wondering why I've bothered doing a review of the Polestar BST270, because after all, as I say, they're only making 270 of them, 40 for the UK, and they're all allocated. So what really was the point? And the point was simply this. I was determined to see whether or not an EV could be an enthusiast car. You see, it's the one thing we've always said at AutoEV, we've always approached this from petrol head's point of view. We know that electric cars aren't going to save the world, but we also know that they're probably going to help a little bit. But in doing so, do they have to be faceless, anonymous kind of machines, or can they appeal to the enthusiast? Now, we know that there are cars out there, electric cars out there, that do drive well and have dynamic abilities, such as the Mini Electric, such as the BMW i4, the Porsche Taycan, the BMW i3, Hyundai's Ioniq 6. We know that there are good cars out there. But this was different. This is my favourite piece of road in the UK. I used to drive this road every single day, and I have driven so many high performance cars and so many sports cars and things along this road. It was the place that I knew that if I was going to prove to myself that an EV could be an enthusiast choice, it had to be on this road. Now, if you're a regular viewer, you'll know that I tried to do it with the BMW iX M60 last year. That was slightly different because I thought, well, could a big SUV really be sporty? This was the place to try it, but it snowed. Well, we've not got any snow today. And could I have picked a better car to do it in? Absolutely not. I really wasn't prepared, I don't think, for how good this BST270 really is. I knew it was going to be good because it's based on the Polestar 2, and I'm a big fan of the Polestar 2. But the fact that I spent 6 hours driving it yesterday up a motorway, a faceless motorway, and then has spent a morning literally hooning it up and down the Devil's Beeftub is simply staggering. The way that this car interacts with you as a driver, the way that it deals with the road and all its imperfections and all its little nuances and the way that it rises and falls and twists and turns is simply mind-blowing. If you are one of those lucky 270 people that are getting this car, then trust me, you are in for a real treat. Because even taking the Porsche Taycan into consideration, which I have to admit I would love to have on this road, I don't think I've driven a more dynamic EV than this Polestar 2. And it's dynamic in the right way. They could quite easily have just made it faster. That's not what they've done. They've delved into the chassis, they've tweaked every little bit, and it's all of those little parts that they've changed all add up to make a massive difference. What a car, what a road. It is simply staggering. Thank you for watching yet another episode of AutoEV. Please remember to make sure you are subscribed to the channel. And if you have enjoyed this video, make sure you do give it a thumbs up. And please, as always, please leave us your comments down below. Are you in line for a BST270 or have you missed out? Because remember, as I say, there's a BST230 coming out and they're making even less of them. Let me know in the comments down below your thoughts. Now remember as well, we're across all social media too. So Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok. So please go and give us a follow, even Twitter, go and give us a follow there because every little bit helps. And if you have enjoyed it and you think to yourself, I don't want to leave Bryan, I don't want to go away yet, you don't have to. Stick on our YouTube channel, because there is just simply 120 something videos now, road test reviews, electric icons, twin tests, used car reviews, even motorbike reviews with our guest presenter, Charlie Berman. All that remains for me to say is thank you once again for watching and supporting AutoEV, and thank you for joining me once again in the wonderful Scotland. I'll see you again soon.